Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this session on how to boost your creativity, part of the versus virus second edition. My name is Younes. I'm 35, based out of Geneva. I'm a coach and serial entrepreneur. Help some government and corporation in corporate innovation. And it's my pleasure to host this session, as I mentioned earlier, on how to boost creativity. And I'll hope you're going to find it insightful and that you're going to have some quick tools, framework, and support for this hackathon. So I'm glad to see a couple of people waking up early this morning. So that's thanks a lot for being present and attending. So I wanted to start because many people ask me, can you really teach to be more creative? And it's absolutely a big yes. So I would like to start with an alternative uses test, like quickly, and I would like to show you this. So we all agree that it's a mug, right? Because in the last workshop I had like a brick, like a Lego for kids, and I asked them, what is this? And someone told me that's a lighter. So I'll give you like 20 seconds, and you will try to give me like as many example of an alternative uses, and even you can send your answer on the chat. So if you can go ahead, you have 20 seconds. Let's start. Don't hesitate to share your answer on the chat, or even to jump in, like if you want to answer directly, if you want to share with us some idea. And place to store pens. That's good. Plant, yeah, nice. Any other idea? Okay, good. So we'll move to the presentation now. So you have it on your screen. That's great. So on the second slide, I'd like to share with you the definition. So creativity is the process of bringing something new into being. Creativity requires passion, commitment. It brings to our awareness what was previously hidden and points to new life. The experience is one of the heightened conscious ecstasy. So as I mentioned, many people, they ask me, oh, can you be really creative? How you can do things? So creativity, it starts when we were young, since you are young, you've been always creative. And then after going to school, working in like a very stringent environment, I would say that you can lose creativity. But if you look at it from different framework that I'll be using today, so you have this invention cycle, which you have imagination, creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So they are all connected. And if you start with imagination, is envisioning things that do not exist. Then it's connected to creativity. And creativity is applying imagination to address a challenge, something that you're going to be doing over the weekend. I hope you already choose your challenge and everything is set up. And then you have innovation is applying creativity to generate unique solutions. And this leads us to the highest steps, I would say, of creativity, which is entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship is applying innovation, scaling unique ideas by inspiring others' imagination. So if we move to the next slide, I'd like to share the 5 key behavior for discovery on the next slide. So This comes from Professor Clayton Christensen, which was a professor at Harvard and an American academic business consultant who has developed like many great theory. Maybe you've heard about the disruptive innovation. He was the author of several books, and one of them is the Innovator's Dilemma that was published like a long time ago, but you still have some very good observation. So the 5 key behaviors that that helps your brain for discovery are associating, so drawing connection between question, problem, or ideas from unrelated fields. So it's always good that you bring, I would say, to the table things that you have learned in a different like industry to fix issues in something completely different. Then you had this session yesterday, I think, on how to frame a problem. So it's still related to questioning, posing queries that challenge common wisdom, challenging the assumption. And then one of the most important aspects is observing, so scrutinizing the behavior of your customer. It can be prospect customers, suppliers, competitors, and of course, the environment where you live. Then it's always really important to stimulate your brain and your capability to be more creative and innovative, is to meet with people with different ideas and different perspectives. So it's something that large corporate, they always try to do, to have someone that comes from with different perspective. And I remember when I was back in London, I think a couple of years ago, the top trader at the city was someone with a geography background or geography PhD. And he was among not from a finance background or something like that, but really with a complete different background, and he achieved a better performance. So, and the last one is experimenting. And I would say that it should be your motto in life, that you experiment a lot of things, and that I would say that you embrace failure, and not like taking it like as a failure, but as a data collection. So if we move to the next slide, I'd like to share with you the innovation engine. And this brings me to the next slide. So you will have the structure. So this has been created by Professor Tina Silling, which is a Stanford professor since I think like 20,000 years. Sorry, 20 years. 20,000 is a lot. And this is going to help you a lot to frame your ideas during this hackathon, and even later. So the creativity model, called the innovation engine, is divided in 2 components formed by 6 parts. So the first component, which is internal, is composed by knowledge, which is the fuel, imagination, transforming knowledge into ideas, and the attitude, which is the spark. On the external component, it is resources, the community assets, the habitats, the environment where you work, the home, and then the most important, the culture, so which is composed by beliefs, values, and behavior. So if we move to the next slide, on the imagination, you have this convergent thinking versus divergent thinking. And this is something that, as I was mentioning to you, that from my own perspective, I think we started being less creative when we start to go to schools after the primary schools. Then you're going to start working in like a very stringent environment. And when you go to school, they expect one single answer. If it's not right, so you might fail, and so on and so forth. So what I like in convergent thinking, that the way you frame your question you can have multiple possibilities, multiple answer and unknown answers, I would say, versus the divergent thinking when we expect only one answers. So if we move to the next slide, so I guess everyone can answer this question, right? I hope so. So 5 plus 5, how much is it? 10, right? If we move to the next slide on reframing, so question mark plus question mark equal to 10. So you have unlimited possibilities, right? It can be a negative number, it can be like a fraction, it can be anything, you know? So it opens the way to unleash your creativity. And this kind of, I would say, exercise is something that you can do on a daily basis to improve your creativity. So the second slide, this one, I mean, is the one that we call divergent thinking. So if you move to the next slide, the second point after imagination, it's connect and combine. So this is the mantra of Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin, saying that make your ABCD your new mantra, always be connecting the dots. So connecting and combining idea is another method which may yield surprising results. Another method that I've heard to boost creativity, and I think it was also shared by Professor Tina Sealing, that it's to reading dictionary word by word. And there is something also funny that it's called the Japanese art of Shindogu, which involves unusual combination of product. If we move to the next slide, there is a quote from Einstein, which I love, say that if I had an hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solution. And I think it resumes and it summarizes everything that we've discovered. Many times people, they start thinking about the solution when they still haven't understand the problem. And by doing this, you will see that in a couple of days, years, months, even hours, you might find a way to have very much new ideas popping up to your mind. So let's move to the next slides. So challenging the assumption. So it's something that it's really important. And the best innovator, and when I say innovator, you could say like people with the highest level of creativity. But as I mentioned at the beginning, everything is connected, basically. So this is a this is an extra look at the problem and seeing if it's possible to redefine, reframe the problem, and perhaps rethink underlying objective of the task. So as I was mentioning, the best innovator, like Steve Jobs, frequently challenged the status quo, you know. So he was asking in the past, so why does a computer need a fan? They also love to ask, if we try this, what would happen? So it's all about also the mindset, and it's important to challenge the assumption and the status quo. So, and especially at the beginning, the first and second wave of answer, they're going to be the most obvious. So you need to keep challenging yourself and the assumption to really have something that is going to be very creative and kind of unique. Then we move to the component of knowledge. So how do you get knowledge? Any guesses? Maybe you can send them on the chat. How to get knowledge? No idea? You're shy? So you could say by reading books, attending classes. Oh yes, researching, true. Thanks for answering. Exchange with others, absolutely right. That's a very good start. That's a very good start. But the best way to do is by observing your environment. So as you can read, knowledge is a toolbox for your imagination. And the way to gain knowledge, as I'm mentioning, is by observing your environment, the shopping center you go, the parking, the work, everywhere around you. So it increases your knowledge. You need to pay attention, and it involves a continuous engagement. It's like if you have kids, they are always asking questions, looking around, what's going on, what is this plant, what is this tree, what is this cars, and they constantly are engaging and asking some very interesting question. Sorry. So innovators are also intense observers. So this is, I would say, that what make the difference between someone that was born like with more capacity to be creative and innovators, and someone who's going to have to work, because as I was saying, it's something that you can learn. There is no excuses. You don't need to be a PhD. You don't need to spend thousands in trainings. It's something that you can start, and like we started with the mug, you can do it with a pen, and alternative uses tests. So there are plenty of ways to do it. So I was saying that innovators, they are good intense observers. They carefully watch the world around them, including them customers, products, services, technology, and companies. This is something important for your project over the hackathon or for the next one. It's really an important thing. So the observation, it's to help them gain insights into and ideas for new ways of doing things. So again, I'd like to use as example Steve Jobs with the observation trip to Xerox PARC. He provided the germ of insight that was the catalyst for both the Macintosh innovative operating system and the mouse and Apple current OS X operating system. So without being too technical, observation, it's really important. So we're going to move to the next slide of attitude. And I would say that that's one of also of the most important thing, because if you don't have the right attitude and you don't think that you are confident enough that you can not solve the problem, you won't be solving it. So it is not easy to come up with big ideas. And you can see a lot in the investment, and especially VC's industry, people saying, oh, everyone has an idea, the execution, it's everything. Big ideas are not cheap, and it's not easy to bring them to life, especially as a startups or during your hackathon. You're going to be searching and making a lot of research and searching for the right business model, right? And even maybe later on you will be able to create something real out of it. So ideas are really important, and not everything is on the execution. So I'd like to move to the next one about the resources. And of course, money is a resource, but as I was saying, and now you can see with everything around you that you also have the people. So most of you are going to be in a group. You have the data, you have, of course, Google, you have the natural resources, the processes, the community. So money shouldn't be everything. And I'd like to play a video about prototyping. I think you're going to have a session tomorrow or today on that, to show you that you can do a lot with a very small budget.
Cue music. So this is possible dance moves for Monster Maker. So music starts, and I'm the player, so I come in and I touch the monster.
We don't have the sound here.
I go and touch again, and he does a different one. And I can go for as long as I want if he has a few signature moves. And when I've had enough and I'm done dancing, I touch the back button, and it pauses, and the music stops. Monster Maker.
Cool.
That's all I can. Come on, Sonic.
Wow.
Get in there, Sonic.
Thanks for playing the video. So basically, you've seen that's a video from IDEO. I love what they do. You can see with like a very small budget with nothing, but just being creative, you can have a very good impact. So again, no excuses. To make, and I'm gonna end up with 3 or 4 more slides on the tools that you're gonna be using, because at a certain point it's good to be creative, but you're gonna have to make your idea happen. And you have 2 different tools. The first one is design thinking. I think that all of you guys know what is design thinking, but I'm just going to explain quickly. And it's a good way also to, it's a great tool to unleash your creativity. So design thinking is human-centered approach to innovation that draws from the designer's toolkit to integrate the needs of people, the possibility of technologies, and the requirement for the business. And I don't want to overlap with the session of my colleague later on. So this is the first tool, as I was mentioning, the design thinking. And the second one, maybe that there are other ways that I don't know, but this is the second, the one that we use, and it's called the customer development. So it's, I would say, the opposite of the design thinking, because with this one, it has more an engineer approach, where you start with a product and then you look for customers. Versus the design thinking is when you know very well your customers and you try to build a product. So that's the opposite approach, and it's more related to the lean startups. So this is something that I like, and maybe you're going to be using one of these 2 tools. But if not for this hackathon, you're going to be able to use them later on. So the second, this methodology or framework, I would say, it is called customer development, and it was built by the Lean Startup movement and Steve Blank. And you also have another plugin that is called Market Opportunities Navigator to identify in which market you want to play. Which was developed by a great professor that you have the chance to have in Switzerland at le PFL, Marc Reber. I'll move to the next slide, which is habitat and culture. So this is the how and the where. We cover it pretty much at the beginning, which is important. You can read the definition. The habitat is going to be where you live, the work, but I would like to pause a bit more on the culture, because there is a quote from Peter Drucker, which was a great management consultant person, American and Australian, I think, which says culture is strategy for breakfast. And this is something important, especially during your hackathon, that maybe you don't know your team member, or you have different approach, different way to do things, different thinking, different perspective. So it's important to respect all opinions and really use the collective intelligence, and also saying that in not most of the case, but in certain case, you might fail, you might do things differently, you might pivot, you might do a lot of things, especially it's not easy, as we were mentioning, to find a big idea. So it really requires to have like a culture of experimenting and like no judgment, you know. So this brings me to the next slide on the things that you need to keep in mind. So believe you can change the world, work quickly, keep the tools unlocked, work whenever, know when to work alone and when to work together, share took ideas, no politics, no bureaucracy, that's important. And this comes from HP 99 annual report. So as I was saying at the in the middle of the presentation, so creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship do not require any particular study or PhD or funding. So resources are next to you. The technology has been made also very affordable. You can try to be more creative on everyday life by doing, by observing and following the steps that I share with you. And the most important thing is the attitude, is the culture, and I would end up with entrepreneurship is for everyone. And from my end, I'm done. It's quite not an innovative way to teach creativity or to share creativity via Zoom. I hope that we'll soon can exchange in real life and see more faces and really we go to the normal. But I would say that from my perspective, I'm glad that I think that we ourselves we have lived the biggest social experiment of our generation, which is this COVID-19, and it brought to the creation of Versus virus. So again, putting together all the people that are in Switzerland and all across the globe, and coming with a new innovative and creative way to tackle solution. So I don't know if you have any question. Happy to take them. Oh, that's from Roxanne. Say thank you so much. My mantra is never stop exploring. That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. Even when you start a book, you know, when we were young, everyone say, "Oh, you need to start reading this book. You need to complete it." And even if you have this mantra of never stop exploring, even if you start a book, you don't like it after 10 pages, you can stop. You know. So this is something that we should be living upon. My colleague is asking if you want to turn on your camera. Happy to see your pajamas, guys, or your faces this early morning. And feel free to ask any question. Otherwise, we'll give more time to the other sessions. Hello. You're on mute.
Oh.
Yeah, I think.
Is it working?
Okay. Yeah, it's working.
Okay, good.
How are you doing?
Fine, and yourself?
Yeah, good.
Thank you for the presentation.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
I have a quick question based on what you said before. So, do you think creativity can be trained?
Yes, of course. I would say it's like a muscle. Some people were born with the biggest, you know, like biggest opportunity to develop these skills. But definitely, and this is something that as I just mentioned, the best way to do it, it's with the knowledge, and the knowledge you acquire it. I mean, we can say by reading books, attending class, but the best way to do it, it's by observing. That's the best ways to do it. And yeah, to look at your environment, and also discussing, networking with people from different perspectives. It will help you out in your life, because something that's important. Sometimes we say, oh, we are just not creative. Okay, punctulus. The idea is that I think there was a report from IBM saying that in the next 3 years, in the top 12 economies, 120 million of people is going to need to be reskilled. And I think it's going to be, it has been accelerated by the pandemic, you know. And the top skills among everything is creativity. And this is, I would say, one of the only way, or maybe the only way, that we can avoid being disrupted by AI and robots and other technologies, by being creative. So this is something that people need to understand. Like corporate and government, they cannot avoid innovation anymore. It's the same for us. We cannot say anymore, I'm not creative. So yes, definitely.
Thank you.
My pleasure. I think we're good to go. If no more question, we can end up. Thanks to all of you for attending the session, and I wish you good luck for the hackathon. And if you have any question, feel free to ask, and all the best.